And what if I told you that one of the most famous enemies in biblical history, the Philistines, might have no real connection to the Palestinians of today? Could we be carrying centuries of misunderstandings, blending ancient conflicts with modern politics? Are we misusing history, or is there a hidden connection that's been overlooked? In today's video, we'll unravel the fascinating truth behind these two names that dominate both biblical history and modern headlines. You'll discover how the Philistines, long gone from history, became entangled with the Palestinians, and why this confusion still matters today. This isn't just about clearing up a historical misunderstanding. It's about uncovering a story that could reshape how you view both ancient scripture and the modern world. By the end of this video, you'll see the Philistines and the Palestinians in a whole new light. Trust me, this is a conversation you don't want to miss. Let's start with the Philistines. These were the infamous foes of Israel in the Bible. Masters of iron weapons, seafarers with mysterious origins, and key players in some of the Bible's most dramatic events. Think of Goliath challenging a young David, or the Ark of the Covenant being captured and returned. Now, fast forward to today. The Palestinians, modern descendants of Arab peoples, are central to one of the most contentious geopolitical issues in the world, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Two names, two stories. But are they connected at all? Could the name Palestine itself be a deliberate echo of the Philistines, or is it a Roman invention meant to rewrite history? The truth is more surprising than you think, and it's coming up next. The mysterious sea peoples. Let's begin with a mystery. Imagine the shores of the ancient Mediterranean around 1200 BC. A time of upheaval, migrations, and collapsing empires. Out of this chaos came a seafaring group known as the Sea Peoples. Among them were the Philistines, who settled in the fertile plains of the Levant, in what is now modern-day Gaza and its surrounding regions. Where did they come from? Historical and archaeological evidence suggests their origins lie in the Aegean region, possibly from Crete or nearby Mycenaean Greece. Their pottery, architecture, and burial practices bear striking similarities to those of ancient Greek culture. The Philistines were not just wanderers, they were innovators, bringing with them iron weapons, advanced craftsmanship, and a distinct culture that stood out amidst the Canaanite and Israelite societies of the time. But why did they settle here? Could it have been divine providence, or a clash of destiny between them and God's chosen people? In biblical history, enemies of God's people, the Philistines were more than just settlers. In the Bible, they became infamous as the arch-enemies of Israel. They were strong, organized, and relentless, a thorn in the side of God's chosen nation. Picture the scene. A young shepherd named David stands alone in a valley, facing the towering warrior Goliath, a Philistine champion. The odds seem impossible, but with a sling and unwavering faith in God, David defeats Goliath in a single decisive moment. This wasn't just a victory for Israel, it was a testimony to God's power, working through those who trust Him. The Philistines weren't just warriors, they were custodians of stolen sacred objects. In Hanukkah 73, the Philistines capture the Ark of the Covenant, but instead of victory, they invite calamity upon themselves. Plagues and disasters follow until they return the ark to Israel. Their gods, false idols like Dagon, fall before the power of the one true God. These stories aren't mere tales of battle, they're reflections of the spiritual struggle between God's chosen people and those who rejected His authority. The Philistines represented opposition to God's plan, a people who challenged His sovereignty. The fall of a powerful nation. Despite their might, the Philistines were not invincible. By 604 BC, their story comes to an abrupt and dramatic end. The Babylonians, led by King Nebuchadnezzar, swept through the region, conquering the Philistines and erasing them from history. The Bible, in Jeremiah 47, foretold this judgment. The day has come to destroy all the Philistines. The Lord is about to destroy the Philistines. After their defeat, the Philistines disappeared as a distinct people. Their cities, Ashdod, Gaza, Ashkelon, Gath, and Ekron, were left in ruins. Their legacy became a footnote in history, remembered primarily through the lens of Scripture. What can we learn from the Philistines' story? Their strength, culture, and achievements were undeniable, yet they fell because they stood against God's will. Does this remind us of modern times? How often do nations or individuals rely on their own strength, only to falter when they reject God? What stands out to you most about the Philistines' role in the Bible? Who are the Palestinians? Let's take a step into the present. When we talk about the Palestinians today, we're referring to a people deeply connected to the land we now call Palestine. But here's the key question. Who are they, really? The Palestinians are an Arab people, their identity rooted in the Middle Eastern lands stretching from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea. Over centuries, their history has been shaped by a series of rulers and empires, Ottomans, British colonizers, and later Israeli governance. Each era left its mark, influencing their culture, society, and struggles. But despite these influences, the Palestinians emerged as a distinct people, deeply tied to the region through shared traditions, family lineages, and a collective sense of belonging. They are not the Philistines of ancient history, though the similarity in names has often caused confusion. Now here's a question for you. Have we mistaken proximity for continuity? Could a people so firmly tied to the Arab world truly share a direct connection with the Philistines? The Palestinians' identity is woven into the broader tapestry of Arab culture. Their language is Arabic, their traditions resonate with those of their Arab neighbors, and their faith is primarily Islam, with significant Christian minorities adding richness to their community. But here's the striking truth. The Palestinians share little, if any, cultural or historical ties to the Philistines. The Philistines were a seafaring people with origins likely in the Aegean region, speaking a language and practicing customs utterly distinct from the Arab world. This raises another fascinating point. If the Palestinians aren't descended from the Philistines, then why has this comparison persisted for so long? Let's turn to history to uncover the answer. Historical evolution of the term Palestine. To understand this confusion, we must go back to the Roman Empire, a time when names were more than labels. They were tools of control. We mentioned the term Attic earlier. After crushing the Jewish revolts in the 2nd century AD, the Roman Emperor Hadrian sought to erase the identity of Judea, the homeland of the Jewish people. He renamed the region Palestina, drawing from the Philistines, a long-extinct people, to mock and diminish the connection between the Jews and their land. Here's the twist. By the time the Romans used the name Palestina, the Philistines had already vanished from history for nearly 700 years. The connection was artificial, meant to serve a political purpose, not to reflect reality. Fast forward to the 20th century, and this Roman name became the basis for the term Palestine, describing the land under British mandate. Over time, it became associated with the Arab people who lived there, giving rise to the modern Palestinian identity. So here's the real takeaway. The name Palestine has nothing to do with the Philistines. It's a Roman invention, repurposed through the centuries. Yet this historical twist has fueled centuries of misunderstanding. Isn't it fascinating how a single name can carry so much weight, yet hide so much truth? If the Philistines and Palestinians aren't connected, what other truths have we misunderstood about history and its role in shaping the world today? The story of the Palestinians is one of resilience and adaptation. They are not the enemies of David or the captors of the Ark. They are a modern people, shaped by centuries of Arab culture and Islamic tradition. Comment below with your thoughts. Does this new perspective change the way you view this topic? Let's dive into the truth together. End quote. Are Philistines and Palestinians really related? Let's start with the names themselves, Philistine and Palestine. At first glance, they seem similar, almost as if they were two sides of the same historical coin. But here's the twist. These names are linguistically unrelated. Yes, you heard that right. Despite the similarity, they come from entirely different roots and belong to vastly different time periods. Each one, the word Philistine originates from the Hebrew term Pelashet, which described the people who lived in the coastal cities of Gaza, Ashdod, and Ashkelon over 3,000 years ago. These Philistines were part of the infamous Sea Peoples, mysterious migrants who stormed the eastern Mediterranean around 1200 BC. But here's the shocker. By 600 BC, the Philistines had vanished from history, wiped out by the Babylonian conquest. No written records, no descendants, no living legacy. On the other hand, Palestine has a completely different story. After the Jewish revolts against Rome in the 2nd century AD, the Roman Empire renamed the region Palestina as a form of political erasure, aiming to sever Jewish ties to the land. This term was later adopted by the Byzantine Empire and carried into the Arabic language as Philistine. It wasn't until the 20th century that Palestinian came to describe the modern Arab population living in the region. Could it be that this linguistic overlap was a deliberate tool of empire? The missing links. Now, let's dig deeper, literally. What does archaeology tell us about the connection between the Philistines and modern Palestinians? The answer might surprise you. Artifacts from the Philistines reveal a culture with strong ties to the Aegean world, not the Middle East. Their pottery, weapons, and even burial practices scream Greek influence. They worshipped gods like Dagon and Astarte, entirely separate from the deities of the Israelites or the later Islamic traditions of the region. Excavations in ancient Philistine cities like Ashkelon have uncovered evidence of their distinct language, diet, and customs, all of which disappeared after the Babylonian conquest. In stark contrast, the Palestinians of today are Arabs. Their language, culture, and religion are rooted in the Islamic and Arab traditions that entered the region centuries after the Philistines were gone. There's simply no archeological or historical evidence linking the two groups. The Philistines left no descendants, and their cultural footprint ended long before the rise of Arab civilizations. If the Philistines vanished so completely, why does their name still echo in one of the most heated geopolitical debates of our time? Understanding the distinction between the Philistines and Palestinians isn't just an exercise in history. It's a powerful reminder of how names, when misunderstood, can shape narratives and fuel misconceptions. When we blur the lines between ancient scripture and modern realities, we risk distorting both. In the Bible, the Philistines were known as fierce enemies of Israel, often representing rebellion against God's covenant people. But equating them with modern Palestinians creates a false link that ignores the rich, complex histories of both groups. It's a misunderstanding that can deepen divides rather than foster understanding. This discovery isn't just about clarifying history, it's about seeking truth in a world filled with half-truths and assumptions. As Christians, we're called to pursue wisdom and understanding, looking beyond the surface to uncover God's truth. Why the confusion? The power of names. What's in a name? This is a question that has shaped our understanding of history, religion, and identity for centuries. But when it comes to the Philistines of the Bible and the Palestinians of today, the similarity in their names has caused more confusion than clarity. It's a misunderstanding that stretches across time, blending biblical narratives with modern realities in ways that often lead to conflict and division. Imagine this. The name Philistine conjures images of battles, giant warriors like Goliath, and a culture at odds with God's chosen people, Israel. But then you hear the name Palestinian in the news, tied to modern geopolitics and a contentious land dispute. Could the two be connected? Some say yes. But is that the truth? Or is it a myth shaped by political and ideological agendas? The role of modern political narratives. To understand the confusion, we must recognize how history and politics often intertwine. Over the years, certain groups have linked the Philistines of the Bible to the Palestinians of today, not because of historical evidence, but for political reasons. These connections are made to legitimize claims or bolster narratives about land, identity, and sovereignty. By invoking biblical imagery of the Philistines, some have sought to paint modern Palestinians as perpetual adversaries of Israel, drawing on the idea of an ancient enmity. On the other hand, others have embraced the term Palestine to claim a long-standing connection to the land, regardless of whether it aligns with historical truth. But here's the kicker: there is no archeological, linguistic, or cultural evidence linking the Philistines, an ancient people, to the Palestinians, a modern Arab group. This realization forces us to confront a powerful truth. Much of the confusion is a product of narratives shaped by agendas, not by facts. Let's turn to Scripture for a moment. The Bible speaks extensively about the Philistines, painting them as fierce enemies of Israel. They were warriors, seafarers, and idol worshippers, often challenging the Israelites in dramatic and unforgettable ways. Now think about this. When people hear the name Palestinian, they might subconsciously associate it with the Philistines, simply because of the similarity in their names. But here's where the danger lies. Biblical language and modern realities don't always align. The Philistines were a distinct people who vanished from history after their defeat by the Babylonians in the 6th century BC. Meanwhile, the Palestinians of today are a modern Arab people, deeply rooted in the cultural and religious traditions of the Middle East. The Bible's references to the Philistines cannot and should not be used to frame or define the Palestinian people. This brings us to the heart of the issue. Historical myths have real-world consequences. When people conflate the Philistines with the Palestinians, it doesn't just distort history, it fuels misunderstandings and tensions in one of the world's most complex conflicts. These misconceptions can lead to harmful stereotypes, oversimplified narratives, and a lack of empathy on both sides. For example, portraying modern Palestinians as Philistine-like adversaries can dehumanize them and ignore their legitimate struggles. Conversely, using the term Palestine as a claim to an ancient heritage can obscure the true historical and cultural roots of the land's peoples. So, how do we untangle this web of confusion? The answer lies in seeking truth, not just in history, but in how we apply biblical teachings to modern life. The Bible calls us to pursue understanding, justice, and reconciliation. But can we truly do that if we let myths and misconceptions guide our views? Christian biblical philosopher Walter Burke has asked that question in Radical Theology. Understanding the difference between Philistines and Palestinians isn't just an exercise in historical accuracy. It's a chance to reflect on how we interpret Scripture and apply it to today's world. It's an opportunity to question the narratives we've been told and seek a deeper understanding of God's truth. As believers, we're called to engage with the world through the lens of Christ's love. That means listening, learning, and recognizing the humanity in everyone, whether they live in ancient biblical times or the modern-day Middle East. The real truth: two different peoples. Philistines, a vanished people of the past. Picture this: the sound of iron weapons clashing, the roar of warriors, and a land filled with tension as two nations battle for survival. The Philistines, one of the most infamous enemies of Israel in the Bible, were a people of power and mystery. They appeared in stories we know well: Goliath challenging David, Samson bringing down the temple, and the Ark of the Covenant moving in and out of their grasp. But who were they really? The Philistines were not Semitic like the Israelites. They were part of the enigmatic Sea Peoples, likely originating from the Aegean region or Crete. Their language, culture, and even their diet, filled with pork and wine, set them apart from their Israelite neighbors. For centuries, the Philistines thrived in 5 major cities along the southern coast of modern-day Israel and Gaza: Ashkelon, Ashdod, Gath, and Ekron. They were skilled in ironworking, sea trade, and warfare, yet despite their prominence, they disappeared from history after the Babylonian conquest in the 6th century BC, leaving behind ruins, artifacts, and biblical accounts. But here's the twist. Their disappearance was so complete that no trace of their people, language, or traditions exists today. A once mighty nation vanished into the sands of time, leaving a legacy of both power and divine judgment. Palestinians, a modern people with a unique story. Fast forward thousands of years to a region still at the center of global attention. The Palestinians are a modern Arab people whose roots trace back to various groups that settled in the Levant over centuries, including Arab tribes, Christian communities, and others who lived under Ottoman and British rule. Their culture is deeply tied to the Arabic language, Islamic traditions, and a shared history with neighboring Middle Eastern nations. The term Palestine itself has ancient origins, but was popularized by the Romans around 135 AD when they renamed the region Palestina after crushing the Jewish revolt. This name was a political statement meant to sever Jewish ties to the land, not a continuation of the Philistines. By this time, the Philistines had already vanished for over 600 years, and it had already vanished for good, since that was the last time the Philistines had already vanished for over 600 years. Modern Palestinians are part of the Arab world, sharing its traditions, religion, and cultural identity. Their struggles, especially in the context of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, are tied to modern political history, not ancient biblical events. They are not descendants of the Philistines, but a people shaped by centuries of Middle Eastern history. As Christians, we are called to seek wisdom and understanding. The Bible itself warns us to avoid falsehoods and pursue truth with love. In Proverbs 3:13 it says, "Blessed is the one who finds wisdom, and the one who gets understanding." Could this be one of those moments to pause and reflect? What would happen if we allowed historical truth to guide our discussions about the present? Could it bring us closer to peace and to God's purpose? Were you surprised by what we uncovered today? Do you think understanding these distinctions can help bring clarity to modern debates about the Holy Land? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. We're eager to hear your perspective. If you found this video meaningful, share it with others who might be intrigued by the connection, or lack thereof, between the Philistines and Palestinians. Let's spread knowledge and inspire deeper conversations about truth, faith, and history. And before you go, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Pathway to Truth, and hit the bell icon. Together, we can continue exploring the hidden stories of the Bible and their modern relevance.